I was 13 years old when my parents decided I was no longer their responsibility. It wasn't during some huge argument or dramatic moment. There was no shouting, no warning, just a quiet Saturday morning that started like any other. My mom packed a small bag with a few of my clothes while my dad avoided looking at me completely. I remember standing in the hallway, confused, asking what was going on. My mom only said, "You'll be staying somewhere else for a while." At the time, I believed her. I thought maybe it was temporary, maybe just a few days. But when the car stopped in front of my aunt's old apartment building and they told me to go inside and wait, something in my chest felt wrong. I walked up the stairs and sat near the door, expecting to hear the car pull back into the parking lot. I waited for almost an hour, staring outside, thinking they would come back any minute. But the car never returned. That night, my aunt finally told me the truth. My parents had called earlier and said they couldn't handle me anymore. According to them, I was too expensive, too difficult, too much responsibility. At 13 years old, I learned the kind of lesson most kids never have to face, that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the same ones who walk away. From that day forward, I understood one thing very clearly. If I wanted a future, I would have to build it on my own. But what my parents didn't realize when they drove away that day was that the scared 13-year-old they abandoned wouldn't stay powerless forever. And one day, they would regret leaving me behind. Life didn't magically improve after my parents left me behind. My aunt did her best, but she was already struggling to take care of herself. Her apartment was small and money was always tight. I learned very quickly that if I wanted anything beyond the basics, I had to work for it myself. By the time I turned 15, I had my first job washing dishes at a small restaurant near our neighborhood. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough for school supplies and bus fares. I studied late into the night after work, determined not to let my situation define the rest of my life. At first, the silence from my parents hurt more than anything. Days turned into months, and months turned into years. They never called. Not on birthdays, not during holidays, not even when I graduated high school. Eventually, I stopped expecting them to reach out. I stopped wondering if they ever thought about me. Instead, I focused on building something better for myself. College was my first real step forward. Through scholarships and part-time work, I managed to pay my way through. It was exhausting balancing classes and jobs, but every small success reminded me why I couldn't give up. After graduating, I landed an entry-level position at a financial firm. It wasn't a big role at first. I spent most of my time organizing reports, checking numbers, and doing work no one else wanted to handle. But I paid attention to everything. I learned how investments worked, how people built wealth, and how careful planning could change someone's entire future. Over time, my hard work paid off. Promotions came slowly, but they came. I started earning more, saving more, and investing wisely. By the time I reached my late 20s, I had something I never imagined when I was 13, a stable life. I owned my own house, had solid savings, and a career that finally gave me a sense of security. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. My phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I would ignore it, but something made me answer. The voice on the other side was hesitant and unfamiliar at first. "Hello, is this you?" For a moment, I couldn't place the voice. It sounded older, tired, almost nervous. Then it suddenly clicked. It was my mother. 15 years had passed since the last time I heard her voice. She began speaking quickly, explaining that she and my father had been trying to find my contact for weeks. She said they wanted to reconnect, that they regretted what happened years ago. At first, I simply listened without interrupting. But then she mentioned something that explained everything. They had lost their home. My father's business had collapsed, after a series of bad financial decisions. On top of that, medical bills had drained whatever savings they had left. According to her, things had been getting worse for years, and now they had nowhere to go. That was when they started searching for me. Not when I graduated, not when I struggled through college, only when they needed help. "Could we come see you?" she asked quietly. "Just to talk." I thought about the 13-year-old kid who once waited on a staircase for hours, hoping his parents would return. Now the situation had completely reversed. They were the ones asking. A week later, they arrived at my house. When I opened the door, I barely recognized them. Time had changed them in ways I hadn't expected. My father looked older and weaker, his shoulders slightly bent. My mother looked nervous, her eyes constantly scanning the house, as if she couldn't believe the life I had built. After sitting down, they started explaining their situation again. Lost business, debts, and no place left to stay. Eventually, my mother finally said the real reason they had come. "We were wondering if maybe we could stay here for a while." The room fell silent. 15 years ago, they had decided I was too much responsibility. Now, they were asking me to take responsibility for them. Instead of reacting emotionally, I quietly stood up and walked to a small desk near the wall. I opened a drawer and pulled out a folder filled with documents. I placed it on the table in front of them. My father opened it slowly. Within seconds, his expression changed. Inside were ownership papers, investment statements, and financial records, proof of everything I had built over the years. My mother flipped through the pages in disbelief. They had spent years thinking the child they abandoned would struggle forever. But now, sitting in my living room, they were realizing something they had never imagined. The kid they walked away from had built a life far stronger than the one they lost. And for the first time since they arrived, I could see the panic starting to grow in their eyes, because they were finally understanding that the power in this situation no longer belonged to them. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I simply closed the folder and stood quietly, letting the silence speak for me. My parents fidgeted nervously, glancing around at the home I had built without them, a life they had ignored for 15 years. For a moment, I saw the regret in their eyes, but I didn't offer comfort. I didn't need to. I had spent years learning that my peace and my boundaries mattered more than their apologies. I walked to the door and opened it, stepping aside to let them leave. They hesitated, as if expecting me to call them back, to ask them to stay. But I didn't. I realized then that power isn't about anger or revenge. It's about control over your own life. And mine was finally mine entirely. They didn't lose me. They lost access. 15 years of absence had taught me that some people only value you when they need you. I had spent my life building, saving, and protecting myself. And now the lesson was clear. I would never let anyone take that away again. The door closed behind them, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, complete calm. I had won not by confrontation, but by simply living my truth. And that truth was stronger than anything they could ever demand from me.